The EFINA podcast, an advocacy tool that seeks to illuminate the financial and economic inclusion challenges, solutions, and advancements in Nigeria. It is the first podcast in Nigeria focusing on this discourse. Join us on this journey. Quick facts. Between 2020 and 2023, Nigeria recorded significant progress in its financial inclusion goals, growing from 68% to 74%, covering both formal and informal use of financial services. Now, why is this important? In the beginning of the Bola Ahmed Tinubu administration, some very important government policies were implemented, which include the removal of the fuel subsidy, the unification of the Naira exchange rates, to name a few. However, these broad efforts have actually had unintended outcomes for some Nigerians, where it's influencing inflation rates, disposable incomes are reducing, just because, again, these policies have had adverse effects in some ways in the short term. And so we are concerned about what this means for financial inclusion in Nigeria. We wonder if by the next time we do the Access to Financial Services in Nigeria survey, there will be a reduction in the populations that have been financially included. But today, I'm going to have a very interesting conversation with an important personality. But my name is Chinasa Collins-Ogbo. I'm the advocacy lead at EFINA, and this is the EFINA podcast. On this episode, we'll be talking about financial inclusion and economic inclusion priorities for Nigeria. And to have that conversation with me, as I mentioned earlier, is an important personality that works with the presidency. He's the technical advisor to the president on financial and economic inclusion in Nigeria. It is none other than Dr. Nurudeen Zauro. Welcome, Dr. Zauro.
Thank you so much, Inasa, and thanks a lot.
Fantastic. So you heard my introduction. We're talking about financial inclusion and economic inclusion, the priorities for Nigeria, understanding that we've made some significant gains over the years, but then there's been some government policies that have been implemented. And what does that mean for financial inclusion, looking at some of the unintended outcomes of those policies, right? But before we go into that conversation, I want to just do a quick icebreaker like I do with the guest. So imagine the year is 2045. What news headline do you want to see for financial inclusion in Nigeria?
Okay, thank you so much once again, Chinaza, and thanks a lot, audience. For me, the news headline is not more than to congratulate Nigeria and, of course, Nigerians for being among, let's say, hopefully the top 20 economies in the world, because at that time we would have achieved the $1 trillion economy by 2030 and would have designed a lot of policies and programs that at that time we should be talking about sustainable inclusion. Because the 95% target, which was meant for 2024, would have been surpassed and a lot of gains would have been recorded. Then these policies that are currently being designed would have been implemented, and at the same time, we would have achieved certain gains. So I should at that time congratulate Nigeria and Nigerians for being among the top 20 economies by 2045 at that time. Thank you.
Fantastic. I love that headline. 2045, Nigeria is one of the top 20 economies with a $1 trillion economy.
More than that.
More than that.
Because it's that would have been achieved by 2030.
Exactly. So
then we would have done quite a lot more than that, because we're not going to stop. That is what we hope to promise Nigeria.
Fantastic. I like that. It's very encouraging. So there's a lot of work to be done then towards 2030, 2045. Okay. So as I mentioned earlier, we want to talk about the priorities for Nigeria in terms of financial and economic inclusion. But I think it'll be useful, or at least helpful to our listeners, to understand the linkage between financial inclusion and economic inclusion, and what does that really mean to the layman.
Okay, thank you so much once again, EFINA, for this very fantastic job. You guys, EFINA, have been our dependable allies right from the beginning of this financial inclusion journey in Nigeria. You see, if the conventional ways, financial inclusion, of course, has to do with access to formal financial services. So at least we're talking about Nigerians opening an account, having access to, credit, pension, savings, insurance, and what have you, isn't it? Yeah. And so that's the basics. But then again, when you look at other parameters, you would realize that It's not enough for someone to just open an account.
Correct.
Then, because you know that based on FNR report, I think the last one, I think about 49%, if I'm not mistaken, that complain about income as a challenge, for them to own an account, right?
Irregular income.
And then, thank you so much, irregular income. I think about 33% talk about distance, 33% also talk about, religious reasons for not having access to finance. So now, it's one thing to open an account and it's another thing to use the account. So there are some factors that lead to usage of account. Usage of account, you have to be economically active. You have to be gainfully employed doing one or two economic activities. For you to continue to use the account. That is what makes the sustainability or the usage of account is important. And then again, the quality of service and trust on the financial system itself is also very important. So all these factors put together, that is why the global thinking, not only Nigeria, global thinking, and even FINA, your report, of course, have indicated that financial inclusion should also be spiced up with other value-added kind of services, which we call economic inclusion. So economic inclusion, on the other hand, actually is referring to, what do you call it? Some of these deliberate, policies and programs be put in place to ensure that there are those things that will make people access economic opportunities. You can give examples of all these social investment programs, economic empowerment, and all that we're actually doing in this. So this administration is very mindful of that. So it's because of that as well when we came on board, apart from the first something that we did, which has to do with the blueprint of the country, which we call Renewed Hope Agenda. You can see very categorical. Item 7 and 8 speaks about access to capital, and then number 8 speaks about inclusivity, right? Within the access to capital, I think that's basically the financial inclusion. There are parameters that have to do with job creation, food security, blah, blah. All those components are part of the economic inclusion, right? And then again, in terms of the inclusivity, all these major challenges that you have identified in the National Financial Inclusion Strategy number 2 that was issued, which has to do with the gender, forcibly displaced person, youth, regional issues, all priority of them segments, are all the priority segments. They are all included in the inclusivity. So this administration is quite interested in ensuring that all those economically active Nigerians are actually considered in the schemes of events in this country. That's the essence of bringing these two together, so that there will be some sort of value addition, for Nigerians, and of course sustainability of this journey. Thank you.
Fantastic. And I think that takes us towards the journey of the goal to have a $1 trillion economy. The vice president at the recently concluded International Financial Inclusion Conference by the Central Bank, in his speech, talked about financial inclusion being at the heart of achieving that goal. And I know that sometime in April this year, the ASO Accord was signed. Just interested to understand how the ASO Accord will basically advance that goal of getting a $1 trillion economy through the lens of financial inclusion.
Okay, once again, thank you so much. So the ASO Accord that was signed, is still part of, as for this administration, it's one thing to do certain policies and programs, and it's another thing to be seen to be doing so.
Right.
So for us to do, to be and be seen to be committed to this financial inclusion, to this $1 trillion economy journey. So that is why on 25th of April, 2024, all the representative of different segments of Nigerian economy, starting with the presidency at the center, at the top, then the fiscal sector, financial sector, private sector, security, as well as the subnationals. One thing that has been done on all this financial inclusion journey, the importance or the prioritization of subnationals was not really at its own peak, except of recent. So for us, we believe every Nigeria belongs to one local government in this country. So therefore, subnationals, they are very important. When we do some policies at the center, that's at the federal level, there is a need to trickle that down to the subnationals, so that when we have acceptance of all this, so that's one of the essence. So now the issue of ASO Accord, basically it's about Nigeria's commitment to renew its commitment, this renewed hope agenda of the president, the commitment to financial inclusion. On that, if you can basically to indicate our commitment, that is one, to this journey. Then number 2, to canvas for partnership.
Right.
All this sector that came together to sign accord, it means they are looking for partnership, including private sector. And we're not only looking for the conventional way of saying public-private partnership. We are also saying public-private partnership, yes, public-public partnership, yes, and private-private partnership. So we are saying that all the gamuts of this, because now
can you explain public-public partnership? What would that look like?
Of course, in terms of public-public, there are so many agencies, that have been driving this financial inclusion journey, right, within the government cycle.
Yes.
But they are some sort of an isolated effort. So public-public, between one agency of government, which is also public, and another agency of government, they need to partner to push the needle. I can give you an example. Recently, you have mentioned about International Financial Inclusion conference that happened. Of course, now we did a lot of partnership with Central Bank, and not only Central Bank. Central Bank, being the driver of financial inclusion, sending for us at the presidency, there's a need for us to join hands together so that we can do this thing together. Even the conventional business of today, especially the ICT, is no longer, the competition is no longer about, all this cutthroat competition for me to edge this one out of business. No, it's about collaboration, right? So I think that's the new thinking, especially all these period of millennials, Gen Zs, and all that. Come on, there's a need for partnership. So our audience are fully aware of this, and this administration is really committed towards that journey and to ensure that all the people that have any role to play in this journey, we have opened up policy. We collaborate, we partner with people. Let's see how we can achieve this target of $1 trillion economy by the year 2030. And we're not stopping there. We're going to continue doing a lot of things so that Nigerians, every economically active Nigerian, should be happy. We should put all the necessary enabling environment for this thing to happen. And that's exactly what we've been doing on a daily basis. And that's why I'm here.
Fantastic. You're working very hard, Dr. Zauro, and it sounds all very promising. It sounds like a lot as well. When you talk about the different partnerships, one of the things that I've come to see, working in this space is also that working in silos, and it's increasingly important for different parties to collaborate because then they all hold different aspects that are critical. What I also see is that there are challenges with that collaboration. How would you encourage that collaboration across different agencies, which is very critical?
Okay, if I get it right, how do we encourage collaboration?
Yes.
I think you have just spoken about ASUA Accord.
Yes.
Symbolically, so Nigeria now bring people together, different segments.
Yes.
That's a clear indication
that they're ready
of
to
encouragement of collaboration, isn't it?
Yeah.
In addition to the multiple issues that we've been doing. It's unlike before, in the presidency, for example, we can come and say, okay, this is the way to go.
Yes.
But we don't do that. We engage people to discuss with people so that we understand what are the pain points. Let's identify what are the people's needs, because that's actually the way we can serve Nigerians. Right? We know that tough decisions are taken, but it is just necessary to take them at this time. Because if those decisions, if those policies are not in place, my dear, we don't predict what would have happened. Do you understand? So I think it's the deliberate actions, but we have to do it in order to support Nigerians. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Zauro. I agree with you that the ASUA Accord is symbolic, and the hope is that it's actually actualized. So I just want to also ask a question around agent banking and digital financial services.
Okay.
And it was also cited by the Vice President in his speech around how it's, advancing financial inclusion. But then there's still a huge gap in terms of different services like insurance, penetration, and rural connectivity. Are there specific strategies that the government is implementing that you're aware of that would drive the opportunity to close these gaps, for instance?
Yeah, of course. I'm aware that the first National Financial Inclusion Strategy that was issued in 2012, set target for insurance 40% by the year 2020 then, right? Okay, again, pension also 20%. And then other segments was also, I think, payments 60% and whatever, isn't it? Okay, so as of today, the FNI again, I think your report showed that insurance was about, as of 2023, was about 3.1%. Hello. So now, look at the global space. Look at the global space. What happened? If you look at the global space, insurance is bigger than banking sector. If you go to US, you go to UK, and something they're doing quite well. So for us, we plan to implement this. You see, look, when we had that National Stakeholders Workshop on 25th of April, where ASUA Accord was signed, where the elevation of conversation around financial inclusion was elevated to National Economic Council. I'm sure it was also another very important decision that was taken, so as it will trickle down to the subnationals, and because that body, the membership is across the entire country, right? So now, after that, as part of the implementation, there are so many recommendations, including the innovative approaches, for us to be able to achieve this target. So as part of the implementation journey, we were able to bring together the stakeholders in the agent banking space as well as fintech. Remember, World Bank report, I think starting from 2017 report, I think, where Africa was top on the list in terms of leveraging technology, right, to deliver financial services. But, if you look at the details of that report, Nigeria was actually not on top of the list. Other countries like Rwanda, Kenya, all these M-Pesas of the world, even Ghana and other countries. So Nigeria actually did well, but Africa is actually best in terms of leveraging technology and delivering financial services. Right? So now, Nigeria, how can we also upscale Nigeria to go into that particular space to ensure that we have fintech associates, they're doing a very fantastic work. In Nigeria, we have agent banking, different associations, they are also doing very good job at the private sector level. So for us as also a listening government, what we did was we brought regulators, law enforcement agencies, including Nigerian police, Nigerian civil defense,
I remember that.
And then again like ONSA, Office of National Security Advisor, DSS, even the NFIU, EFCC, all the stakeholders, including Central Bank, NITA, all of them were together. We took a study tour and policy dialogue outside the country. Well-funded, private sector-wise, not government, because of the collaboration. Also, like I said, private sector. So we came together. It was sponsored by, some development partners. We went out there to study what exactly is the secret. What are they doing different that we are not doing? What does that mean? It tells you, first, collaboration, as we accord. It tells you another thing to say, let's hear from people, right? So that we will not take our own decision. That's another thing. So all this we did and we came back. It was a very fantastic learning. We visited many important places, I don't want to mention, I don't want to mention, but we did a very fantastic. So a lot of things are actually being churned up right now that I speak with you. Of course, the key learning is still the issue of collaboration, actually, leveraging technology, and of course, that innovative solution. We're going to come up with so many things that you're doing. Because, for example, if you're talking about financial inclusion, the success story you point out, like India, right? They did their own stuff. Even in Nigeria, in Africa, you talk about Kenya and other countries like that. So before end of this year, we're actually coming up with so many innovative models, especially enhancing one of the key challenges which has to do with infrastructure. Our fintech guys, they're doing very fantastic job. Central Bank is also doing very fantastic job in terms of enabling environment policies and programs, regulatory reforms. But how do we get there? We have NCC. Remember recently, NCC, they rolled out 90,000, fiber optics in order to enhance, and then again, Ministry of Communication and Digital Economy, they did 774 project 774 enhancing connectivity, because there has to be a network in order to, provide those kind of services. NIMSI, they're also doing very fantastic. I'm sure you're fully aware of that. So all this put together, there's a need for a common platform which addresses the popular one, which we call DPI, right? Digital Public Infrastructure. That has to do with that has to do with identity. Then payment systems as well as the data exchange. So this is also one of the issues, and even during the conference, it has been mentioned over and over. So Nigeria is actually doing a lot of things. Ministry of Communication, Innovation and Digital Economy, right? They are doing very fantastic innovations coming up with that. Then again, NIDA is also doing well. So as part of the collaborative effort, we are coming up with certain things towards this end of this year to ensure that Nigerians, every Nigeria with a very good and fantastic idea, has a very fantastic enabling environment to ride onto that. And Nigeria will not carry last.
We don't carry
when you get out there, you see Nigerians being front. So I think when you look at Mr. President in Saudi Arabia, he begged Nigerians to come back home. It's a deliberate decision because he knows that we have a lot of plans for us to, not even plans. We have put a lot of things that will
in
come
place. That would
the issue of hardship, we know there's hardship, but is not specific to Nigeria, and of course it's a global phenomenon. And I can tell you, my dear, I can tell you honestly, if not for all these deliberate decisions and all that we're taking, you don't know what would have happened. So I can probably tell you that target of $1 trillion is still in course, and we're doing everything possible to achieve that. And 95% has come to stay.
95%.
Financial inclusion, right?
By 20,
Yeah,
by which year?
2025. We have some months ago, right?
We have some months ago.
By the way,
I'm very hopeful.
By the way, somebody will say it is too ambitious. I agree with that. The initial target was 80%.
Exactly.
And then again, we have 95%. Some people will agree with me. will challenge me by saying, okay, that 95% target is sort of like just a pronouncement.
Yes.
Which led to, well, I don't want to go into
the details.
But at least the people that set that target, they know why they set that target.
So
ours is to support their administration to ensure that
it happens.
We achieve the target. And I want to believe that FINA is actually with us on this journey.
We're with you on that journey.
Are you sure?
We're very sure.
We are open.
But then we need everybody to collaborate. Thank you, Dr. Zauro. You're so optimistic about advancement of financial inclusion.
Sure.
And the 95% targets, as you said, it's very ambitious. But just looking at the current realities, and I know you say that the policies are obviously, and we all know they're well-meaning policies. It's just that the effects and the experience that people are having makes it almost look like it's impossible to achieve, right? So if you're speaking so optimistically, there's someone right now who's listening and thinking, all I want to do is earn money to eat for today.
Yeah, sure.
And so how can they connect to these big visions and these activities or the things that we have lined out and laid out that we know are promising, but they can't see it? How do we let that kind of person understand that, there's hope?
Okay, my dear, let me say this. You see, there are so many parameters that are also enablers to economic and financial inclusion in the world. Security is one of them.
Absolutely.
You understand? And I'm sure you know what is happening. All these security issues, some of them are imported issues, which, as much as we're doing everything possible as a country to ensure we achieve certain factors, certain targets, for the very good and well-intentioned for Nigerians and Nigeria by this administration. At the same time, some people somewhere are gaining, by making Nigeria, something different, which with all the unintended consequences. And I'm sure you have seen a lot of effort, of course, by our securities that is actually going on, to ensure that they arrest those particular situations. The issue of insecurity, especially that is so prevalent out there, especially in the northern part of Nigeria, that it has
and that's one of the priority segments.
Thank you so much, especially, that most of the food production comes from there, for food security and all that. But, security sector is not something that I will come on media and start.
Absolutely, and we can't comment on that. But it's to highlight
there are so
some of the limitations
in Nigeria that this thing is going to be a thing of the past. And I can assure you that the administration is fully aware and is doing everything possible to achieve that target, right? Again, other factors, I can give you an example. I think this is the first time we've had senior and state minister in the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs. This social investment started in the last administration. So when we came on board, along the line, there were some few issues. But now, in order to indicate the renewed determination to push this agenda, my dear. So that is why very, experienced and, high profile personalities were appointed in this role. They're going to come with a lot of initiatives in addition to what is going on in the Ministry of Finance and the coordinating minister of economy, Mr. Wale Edom, is doing very fantastic job. I'm sure you've seen that in addition to Central Bank. Of course, look, my dear, there are some painful decisions that have to be taken. That's what I can tell you. And those ones are things that within no distant time, I can tell you that and we're not only doing them, but Nigerians are also seeing it. Even though Nigerians, they have every genuine reason to cry out, because if you're hungry, you need to better food first before you can talk of whether something is right. Nigerians, please, I can only compass for additional patience, just by our Oga has also done the same. We understand that, but I can tell you these policies are being put in place to ensure that every economically active Nigerian, we know they carry last out there, will also come back. When you look at even relationship with diaspora community, there are lots of engagement that are ongoing, that some of them might not necessarily be ready to spell out right now. But I can tell you, just give us just a little bit more time in this journey. We will get there.
Thank you very much. A very strong message of hope that you've given there. So I guess we'll encourage listeners and Nigerians alike to just wait and be patient, give it some more time, and hopefully we can see some positive outcomes out of these policies that have been implemented. And to us, in terms of financial inclusion, we're hoping that by the next wave of the Access to Financial Services Nigeria survey, we actually won't see a reduction in financial inclusion. There will actually be an increase. Do you share that hope?
I'm very optimistic about
Fantastic. That. I like that. Just before we close this conversation, can you just share very quickly, like 2 key, like low-hanging fruits that you would suggest in terms of how we can see and advance financial and economic inclusion? I know you've probably talked about the two main ones. I can guess, but maybe I should just let you.
Too long fruit that is on ground, or this that is on the pipeline? What are you saying?
Both. So it can be on ground. Which one that you think that would be most effective? That would be a needle mover.
Anyway, like I've just mentioned to you that we're going to launch something that has to do with this public infrastructure.
So the DPI.
Which opened the door for especially the tech guys, who are young guys.
Okay.
They take advantage of that to see how they can, leverage and all that. My dear, it's an open something that is going to employ a lot of Nigerians, and they will be gainfully employed. They will do a lot of. Then again, we also have other initiatives. For example, we intend to have, in the entire 8,800 plus watts that we have across the country, we intend to open some sort of like centers where it connects directly with people, so that people can actually walk in. They can open their BVN, they can open a bank account, and even as a point of access where some of these government intervention can actually go.
So like a one-stop shop for
do you understand? So and other even economic activities. I can give you example. Let me give you example with Maiduguri, which currently is on top of the list on exclusion, right? So the young women, especially married women in most cases, or the young women, they are into all these cabs, spinning cabs and other very fantastic jobs that are doing. But these cabs are being exported not only in Nigeria, anywhere. So if you look at what they are selling, that cab is very, very cheap, very low. Or when the middleman that will buy it from there and take it somewhere, takes it as almost times 10 of the price. So we're trying to say, okay, good, why can't we have some point of presence? We call it maybe economic inclusion centers, or just don't worry about the naming. It's going to come, it will be made public. So, but when those kind of places, we can be able to aggregate all those economic activities they are doing without changing the narrative by way of paying up, and at the same time have some sort of like a contract with them, so that when it is disposed at the final place where the most profit is going to be made, they have their own share. You understand? So that we can be able to dislodge all this issue of middlemen that is exploiting the innocent, actively productive population. So those kind of initiatives, I don't just want to give too much details, because I know that it's something that we're going to launch. I am very optimistic they're going to launch it before end of the year, hopefully, or first quarter of the next year. So all these things, they are targeted towards ensuring that every economically active Nigerian has a right, you understand, not only to open an account, but also to be gainfully employed and economically employed. Do you understand? I hope you are aware of the development partners roundtable we're bringing on 4th December. The essence is to see all the development partners that we are working with in the country. They are doing multilateral organizations to say, come on, what has your own strategy? Can you align it with the ASCO Accord, so that we can be able to, as a government and you as a private sector, push, so that at the end of the day, it will be of benefit to Nigeria. And of course, we are also doing a lot of other partnerships, like on 30th January 2025. That's from like a month or thereabout from us. We want to also implement the gender inclusion component of the ASCO Accord. That day is going to be very massive. We have done a pre-launch of something just of recent. I'm sure about 2 weeks ago you have seen it on all the media, where we started the pilot in FCT. We supported 300 women, in FCT, including the forcibly displaced and people with disabilities and all that. So we've done that. We did in partnership with UN Women. Do you understand? And all the stuff, it's just a pilot, but the bigger one that's going to be international event is going to come up on 30th of January. And I can tell you that Nigerians, especially women, for that purpose, will have every reason to be happy that they are Nigerians. Thank you so much. Fantastic. Well, looking forward to all of those fantastic initiatives and hoping that it really does change the narrative. Thank you so much, Dr. Zauro, for your time. It's been very insightful, and I'm sure that more people are probably more informed about some of the work that you're doing and what it means for Nigeria's financial and economic advancement. So thank you for your time. Thank you so much. And thanks to EFINA and thanks to Nigerians. So thank you very much. That was the technical advisor to the President on Financial and Economic Inclusion in Nigeria, Dr. Nurudeen Zauro, and I am Chinasa Collins-Ogbo, the advocacy lead at EFINA. Thank you for listening, and watch out for the next episode. To learn more about EFINA, a financial sector deepening organization seeking to facilitate an inclusive market that works for all Nigerians, please visit www.efina.org.ng.